and welcome back to Dreamy and Foxy's UK adventure, where we travel to the 3 highest peaks in Britain and check out 3 of the loveliest cities on offer in the UK. But as ever, before we get started, just a reminder that although I do fact check where possible, mistakes are bound to happen. Prices were correct as of June 2022, and of course, if there are any mistakes, it is always Foxy's fault. Now we can get back to the fun stuff and our trip to the Isle of Skye, the second largest in Scotland and the largest and northernmost of the major islands in the Inner Hebrides. The geography of Skye consists of a mountainous hub of jagged rocky mountains, the Eilean, from which peninsulas radiate out to the shore. This produces incredibly dramatic scenery, some of which I'll feature here. Skye has a long history of occupation, dating back to the Mesolithic period, which for northern Europe spanned about 15,000 to 5,000 years before present. One of the oldest archaeological sites in Scotland is on the island, at High Pasture Cave. Previous occupants include Picts, Gaels, Vikings and the Norse Gaels clans of MacLeod and MacDonald. Until the 1266 Treaty of Perth, Skye was under Norwegian control, but then it was transferred over to Scotland. As well as its physical history, legends and mentions of Skye have appeared in Norse sagas and Roman, Gaelic and English writings. Often referred to as the Misty Isle or the Isle of Cloud, Skye's wonderfully irregular shape is due to the 15 major sea locks present on the island, which means that no part of Skye is more than 5 miles or 8 kilometres from the sea. The island has been linked to the mainland by the Skye Bridge since 1995, built by a private company. However, the high toll price caused protests and a concerted campaign against the cost. On December the 21st, 2004, the Scottish executive purchased the bridge and abolished the tolls, to the delight of both local inhabitants and tourists. Prior to this, the main access to the island was via ferry. Indeed, when I first visited Skye, together with the original Mr. Dreamy and Tyson the dog, back in 1990, that was how we had to get there. Our journey up to Skye started with us travelling along the A87 over the bridge to our first stop in Broadford, a distance of 58 miles. After a brief stop, we continued to Dunvegan via the A863 up the western side of the island, a journey of 40 miles. Then we travelled along the A850 before connecting up with the A87 to travel via Portree to Eilean Donan Castle, about 65 miles, before heading back to Invergarry, a total round trip of approximately 200 miles. Broadford is the second largest settlement on the island. This long meandering village derives its name from the Old Norse for the wide bay, and west of Broadford was the site of a decisive battle by the Gaelic clan MacKinnon against the Norsemen. A cattle market from the late 1700s, Thomas Telford built the road from Portree to Caerleachan in 1812, which is now the A87. Veterans of the Napoleonic Wars settled here, and there is even a section of the village named Waterloo. Alexander Smith, a Scottish poet and essayist from the 19th century, wrote, "If Portree is the London of Skye, then Broadford is surely its Manchester." Now that may mean it rains all the time, but I'm fairly sure that if it's raining in Broadford, it's definitely raining in Portree. It's also believed that the recipe for drambuie was given by Bonnie Prince Charlie to Clan MacKinnon, who then passed it on to James Ross. Ross ran the Broadford Inn, and after developing and improving the recipe, he sold it further afield than Skye, and the name was registered as a trademark in 1893. Now, I am a little partial to drambuie, and I have to say that I've never noticed until now that the label says the Isle of Skye liqueur. To be honest, Broadford, although it's in a beautiful spot, was not the main draw for us to stop. Instead, Foxy had his heart set on a Celtic silver ring, which we'd seen advertised at a small jewellery store called Loved from Skye, based in Broadford. It was just a little shop, but their rings and other items were beautiful, so when I saw the one Foxy wanted and saw that they had a ladies' version, well, it seemed like fate. So here they are. They did have to be sent on to us, but arrived before we left for Australia, although they did say that they could have sent them to us here too. While we were stopped, we had a walk to stretch our legs and a wee snack to put us on. This is definitely the saddest picnic ever. After our short stop, we travelled the 40 miles up to Dunvegan Castle, positioned on the northwest of the island on Loch Dunvegan. Dunvegan Castle has been the ancestral seat of the MacLeods of MacLeod for nearly 800 years and is currently owned by John MacLeod. Despite extensive work during the 17th, 18th and 19th centuries which altered the original medieval appearance, the fairy tower, the old curtain wall, the dungeon and the original sea gate are all still in evidence. At one time, the sea gate was the only entrance to the castle. As with many castles, there are several interesting relics on display, including the fairy flag, the Dunvegan cup, Rory Moore's horn, and a lock of Bonnie Prince Charlie's hair, but more on him in a moment. There is historical evidence that the Norseman Jarrold Hardrada, who was an early ancestor of the chiefs of MacLeod, brought a famous banner back to Britain as part of his spoils from expeditions to the Middle East. After his death in 1066, the banner was displayed in his castle at Dunvegan and became known as the Fairy Flag. The fabric is woven from silk from the Holy Land and has been dated to between the 4th and 7th centuries. However, as always, there is another tale to explain the flag. Sir Reginald MacLeod, the 27th chief, claimed it was given to his ancestor by fairies. It was believed that whenever the flag was unfurled in battle, victory would be snatched from the jaws of defeat. Unfortunately, that didn't quite prove the case for old Harold at the Battle of Stamford Bridge. It's believed that the Dunvegan Cup was gifted by the O'Neills of Ulster to Sir Rory Moore in thanks for his support of their cause against Queen Elizabeth I in 1596, but there are many different versions of its history. The cup itself is wooden, but embellished with silver plates, gilding and filigree, complete with a Latin inscription on the silver rim. Holding 1.5 litres of claret, there was a tradition for each male heir as they came of age to empty Rory Moore's horn in one draught, without setting down or falling down. The last time this was achieved was by the 29th chief, John MacLeod, in 1956. He did practice extensively beforehand, as you would, and managed to drain the horn in 1 minute and 57 seconds. The horn is from an ox, tipped in silver with imprinted medallions on the rim. So back to Bonnie Prince Charlie. Prince Charles Edward Stuart could have an entire episode to himself, but we're just going to deal with the over the sea to Skye part. Although the MacLeod chief during the Jacobite uprising of 1745 was not a supporter of the prince, many of his clansmen were. Donald MacLeod was responsible for conveying the prince across the waters to Skye when he was fleeing as a fugitive. In fact, Galtriel, the home of Donald, can be seen over the loch from the castle. Flora MacDonald, who helped the prince pass through an English checkpoint dressed as a woman, spent her final years living in Dunvegan Castle. The weather was a tad on the, shall we say, damp side when we visited, so we didn't really check out the extensive gardens. I've added a few photos here, courtesy of the guidebook, the details of which are listed at the end of the video. As we like to travel back by a different route to our outward journey wherever possible, we travelled back to the mainland via Portree, the largest settlement on Skye. The town is a popular tourist spot on the island and has a few hotels, hostels and bed and breakfasts, both in town and lining the roads in and out. Set around a natural harbour, it is a common docking spot for both fishing boats and pleasure craft and offers many facilities such as swimming, pony trekking and boat cruises. As a cultural hub for the area, the award-winning Aros Centre runs theatre shows, concerts and film screenings. Back on the mainland, Foxy was determined to stop at Eilean Donan Castle, positioned just off the A87 south of Dorney. One of Foxy's favourite films is Highlander, just the first one obviously, as the rest will not sully this video, and the castle featured in the film. Built in 1220 as one of Alexander II's defences against the Danes, it is situated on a tiny, rocky, tidal island at the junction of three lochs, Loch Duch, Loch Long and Loch Alsh. Although it is possible to walk across to the island at low tide, it is hard going, and so the main access is via the bridge, which of course was the final part of the structure to be built. In 1719, whilst held by the Jacobites, an English warship bombarded the castle to ruin, which is how it remained until 1932, when Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae Gilstrap and his wife Ella restored it to its former condition. This couple are the great-grandparents of the current owners. The Horn Walk, which is a defensive structure facing the mainland, built in the early 1500s to act as a firing platform for the newfangled cannons, leads to the main entrance, guarded by a portcullis. As with many castles, the courtyard is central to the castle, with access to the keep and the other buildings. A crenellated seawall at the far end of the courtyard allowed defenders to fire at raiders while maintaining some cover. It was also allegedly where, after a few days of captivity, prisoners would be pushed into the sea. Those who survived and swam to shore were shown mercy and allowed to escape. Not quite sure how true that would be. Within the castle, there are several restored rooms which give a glimpse into the lives of the McCrae clan. The billeting room, originally divided into a storage cellar and kitchen, became an off-duty billet for soldiers. On the first floor of the keep is the banqueting hall, featuring a beautifully carved stone fireplace with the McCrae Gilstrap coat of arms at the centre. Although the main door into this room is part of the medieval building, this fireplace was created by Alexander Carrick in 1912 to 1916. Carrick was even given special leave to complete the work before being posted off to the Western Front in World War I. In common with many medieval castles, to reduce the risk of fire, the kitchen and scullery are positioned outside the keep, above the main entrance. These rooms have been reconstructed to represent how they would have looked in the 1930s, with the butler in attendance, checking the meals before they are served. As mentioned earlier, the castle featured in Highlander, but has also appeared in many other films and TV shows, including, more recently, Rob Roy, The World Is Not Enough, Hamish Macbeth and Agatha Christie's Marple. It also inspired the animation team at Pixar Animation when they were creating Brave, and a special premiere screening was held at the castle. So after the excitement of 2 castles in one day, we made the drive back to Invergarry, more than ready for a spot of dinner. We had a great day today. Hopefully you've enjoyed our trip to Skye along with us. If you did, then please don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you won't miss our next trip, which will involve a famous bridge and the first of our mountains. For further information on the places we visited today, please check out these links. You can also find them in the description below. Take care.